I don't think it's necessary. I think that's overkill to put a barrier from one side of the border to the other.
That's William Barr, what Steve Bannon would look like with a very minor glow-up. He's the top law enforcement official of our country. He plays the bagpipes. He thinks Roe v. Wade was wrongly decided, and he believes the Mueller Report, which specifically said did not exonerate the president, exonerated the president. William Pelham Barr was born in 1950 in New York City to a mother and father who both taught at Columbia University on the Upper West Side, the same school Barr graduated from in 1973 with a master's degree in government and Chinese studies. After graduating, Barr worked in the Chinese unit for the CIA by day and attended classes at George Washington University's law school by night. He graduated in 1977 and left the agency for a clerkship with a judge on the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals. In the early 80s, Barr served on the domestic policy staff in the Reagan administration before being tapped by George H.W. Bush to Assistant Attorney General for the Department of Justice Office of Legal Counsel. It was in this post that Barr exercised his summarize and redact muscle, the same muscle he'd go on to use for Home Alone 2 cameo star Donald J. Trump. Under George H.W. Bush, Barr wrote and tried to hide a very controversial legal opinion, seemingly suggesting that the U.S. could unilaterally, without the go-ahead from international governments, send its FBI agents to overthrow a foreign leader from power. Barr was asked to hand over the legal memo containing the rationale for allowing something like this. He declined and instead offered a 13-page document that summarized the principal conclusions. But when Congress eventually obtained the full memo in 1991, it was discovered that his summary left out some of the conclusions in the full memo, which is bad.
What does bad mean?
Ryan Goodman, a former Defense Department special counsel, wrote that Barr's summary omitted some of the most consequential and incendiary conclusions from the actual opinion, and there was evidently no justifiable reason for having withheld those parts from Congress or the public. Barr became Attorney General in 1991 and was confirmed despite saying things like this.
I think that my views are consistent with the views that have been taken by the department since 1983, which is that Roe v. Wade was wrongly decided and should be overruled.
Barr said he would step up the department's anti-drug activities, go after violent crime, and enforce civil rights laws.
Tend to be proactive, and as I said, civil rights will be a priority.
Shortly after muttering that statement, Barr signed off on a 37-page report titled The Case for More Incarceration, in which the Justice Department called on the country to increase incarceration rates and build more jails and prisons. Barr went further in an interview with the Los Angeles Times in 1992, where, when asked about racial disparities in prisons, Barr argued that the justice system was fair overall and does not treat people differently based on race. He then went on to seemingly blame the Rodney King riots in part on immigration. Rough stuff. Barr continued stirring up controversy when he advocated pardoning 6 extremely controversial former Reagan White House officials. The New York Times ran a story in 1992. Bush pardoned 6 in Iran affair. Prosecutor assails cover-up. The 6 former aides Barr lobbied to pardon included ones convicted of lying to Congress or withholding information during the Iran-Contra investigation, in which senior officials secretly facilitated the sale of arms to Iran. The Reagan and Bush administrations were also accused of funneling billions of dollars in loans to Saddam Hussein in what was termed Iraq-gate. Barr was accused of protecting the president by refusing a congressional request to appoint an independent counsel to investigate the matter. Reports at the time paint a harrowing image of Barr. New York Times columnist William Safire called Barr the cover-up general, with a track record of alleged cover-ups, blaming police brutality on immigration, and going through great lengths to protect the president. It's clear why Trump might have chosen Barr to protect him. But months before he was tapped, Barr continued punching up his resume, seemingly just in case Trump was looking for more qualities. He probably wasn't. That was probably enough, but nevertheless, years. In 2017, Barr wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post titled, "Trump Made the Right Call on Comey." Barr also reportedly believed that there was more reason to investigate Hillary Clinton than the guy he wanted a job from. In June 2018, as if Barr didn't already have the gig, he sent an unsolicited memo to Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein. In the memo, called Mueller's Obstruction Theory, Barr, in 19 pages, basically laid the groundwork for the argument that Mueller might be investigating a made-up crime.
The memo stated a fatal flaw in Mueller's interpretation of 1512c2 is that while defining obstruction solely as acting corruptly, Mueller offers no definition of what corruptly means. My understanding is that there's nothing in the public record that sheds light on his definition of obstruction. Do you know what his definition is?
I don't know what his definition is.
Barr went on to clear up what his memo really was.
Well, as I said, I was speculating.
Special counsel Robert Mueller handed his report over to Barr in March 2019 after a nearly 2-year investigation surrounding Russia's election interference and whether it colluded with Donald Trump. 8 Americans once affiliated with the Trump campaign or administration, 25 Russians, 3 Russian companies, and 2 others were charged in the investigation. Just 2 days after Mueller turned in his more than 400-page report, it was reduced to just 4 pages of Barr's famous principal conclusions.
Did you personally review all of the underlying evidence?
No, we took and accepted.
Did Mr. Rosenstein?
No, we accepted the statements in the report as the factual record. We did not go underneath it to see whether or not they were accurate. We accepted it as accurate.
After Barr released his 4-page summary of Mueller's findings, Mueller wrote him a letter expressing concern that Barr had mischaracterized his report because Barr was totally that kid in class who lied about reading the book. And Mueller went further when he spoke to the public for the first time after roughly 2 years of silence.
If we had had confidence that the president clearly did not commit a crime, we would have said so.
Barr seemingly believed because Mueller didn't charge Trump with obstruction, the president was exonerated. But really, under the Justice Department rules, you cannot indict a sitting president. It has to go to Congress.
Under long-standing department policy, a president cannot be charged with a federal crime while he is in office.
The special counsel investigation reported 10 instances of possible obstruction of justice involving the president, including Trump's failed attempt to fire Mueller. And in so many words, Mueller hinted at the possibility of an impeachment inquiry by Congress, stating, "The Constitution requires a process other than the criminal justice system to formally accuse a sitting president of wrongdoing." While Barr's days of protecting past, current, and possibly future presidents seem to be far from over, one thing's for certain. No one, not Barr or the President of the United States, is above the law. We think.